Hello and welcome to Living Legacies of the Ozarks. My name is Hayden Head.
And my name is Sue Head, and we're coming to you from the Ralph Foster Museum on the campus of College of the Ozarks. And I am thrilled today to introduce a good friend and colleague of mine, Marci Linson. Marci has served here at the college for 35 years, and during those 35 years, I know that she's about 35,000 files have passed through her hands as far as admission to the college go. And I always say that she has the hardest job here at the college. So Marci, tell us a little bit. You grew up in this area.
I did.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I can't think of any other place that I would have rather had the opportunity to grow up than right here in Taney County. Our family roots run deep here. I was counting up the generations today. I'm the 7th generation of my family to live in the Taney County and Stone County area. And, you know, education has been a part of my life since, you know, my father was an educator. And then I think back to, you know, a prized possession that I have, which is a one-room schoolhouse photo that I have of my great-grandmother when she was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And she attended a little schoolhouse that is now covered by Table Rock Lake. It was called Centerpoint School. And it would be somewhere, if you were on the Showboat Branson Bell, you would probably drive right by its ruins that are now underwater. So just love the history and the educational roots that run deep here.
Mm-hmm. And you went to College of the Ozarks, isn't that right?
I did go to College of the Ozarks. Graduated a few years ago and then came to work shortly thereafter graduation and have been here 35 years.
Wow, that is great. So I'm sure in the time that you've been here, and Sue, you mentioned all those thousands of applications that have come through your hands, Marci, that you must have had some stories about students who have come here and their circumstances. Could you just share a couple of those with us? We'd love to hear them.
Sure. There have been many, many stories throughout my 35 years that certainly are very heart-wrenching and also very rewarding when you see what students persevere through in order to get a degree and then go on and be successful. But I think the first story that I would share would be about a student whose file that I did not review because I wasn't alive when this person came to School of the Ozarks. And that was my dad. My dad went to school here, and he was a very deprived young man, did not come from strong financial means at all, was the son of a single parent, and lived through the period in the 40s when polio was rampant, and as a result he dealt with a handicapped leg all of his life. And his mother, fearing he had no hope for education, sent him to School of the Ozarks for high school. That didn't work out for him. He was too young and too far away. So he finished high school back in his hometown, then turned right around and came back. And he got a degree here in education. And his first job was teaching high school social studies at Hollister High School. And so that is very, very special to me and my family because the opportunities, I mean, that really unlocked the door for my pathway to begin here at College of the Ozarks. I always like to say, because of one man's obedience, that would be the Reverend James Forsyth. You know, in 1906, due to his obedience to God's call in his life, the doors of school, now College of the Ozarks, were opened. And had he not been obedient to God's call in his life, the tens of thousands of people who passed through these gates, who met their spouses, who had families, who have become physicians, who have been teachers, just to name a couple of occupations. His obedience to the call of God on his life has impacted the region, the state, our little backyard here, in the world. So I always love that story because not for James Forsyth, my dad wouldn't have come here. I wouldn't be blessed to be sitting in this chair right now talking to you. But a couple of situations that, you know, if someone asked me, why are you at College of the Ozarks? Why do you think God put you here? I would say for a couple of students in particular, there are many, many, many stories, but there are two in particular that that just resonates strongly with me that I will likely carry with me all of my days. And one, Sue, you and I have shared this story multiple times, but it's the story of Joe. And Joe is a young man who came from a very disadvantaged background, poverty, no dad, and really had all the odds stacked against him, had every socioeconomic factor in his background that research and statistics tell us he will not make it. He will not succeed. There's no way he will get an education because he just has too much working against him. So we learned about this young man. We helped him apply, got him through the application process, but my experience told me he would not even walk through the front gate. He might get admitted, but then he would call and cancel, because I've been there, I've done that, I've seen it time after time. And while I was hopeful, I still knew the reality of the matter. I knew what the facts were, and that was that he probably didn't have much of a chance. But I also knew that the truth was that God would make a way who it was meant for him to be here. So everything seemed to be working out. Student gets admitted. It's time for first day of class. So far, so good. And then my phone rings. And I look down, and it's Joe. And I answered the phone, and it was Joe telling me he's not coming. So the very thing I feared the most came upon me that day. And it broke my heart. And I said, Joe, why are you not coming? Well, my car's broke down. I can't get here. And me having the experience that I had at that point said, oh yeah, you'll get here. I knew how to overcome that. I'd lived a while. I knew you can get over that. But you take a young student who's grown up in poverty, once they hit a wall, they don't know how to get over it because they've never seen it exemplified. They just hit roadblocks and just stop because that's what they know. I said, you sit where you are, we'll be there and we'll come get you. And that's exactly what we did. We went, we got him, brought him to school. He had, minimal belongings that I remember thinking, wow, I hope we have enough room in the car to get him over here, because I took girls to college. I raised daughters. I took girls to college. They have a lot of junk. So I had kind of gotten out of touch, really. And so when we went to pick him up, he opened his trunk and all he had was a backpack and a duffel bag. And I was quickly humbled and reminded that, these situations do still exist. And they're never going to go away. So he gets in the car, we drive to school, and on the way we're talking about what you need to start college with. Well, do you have what you need? Oh, yeah, I have what I need. Do you have bedding? Yeah, I have a blanket. Well, that was code for, no, I don't have bedding. I have a blanket. It's probably the same blanket that he's had for years. And needless to say, we get here, we drop him off, he checks in at his dorm, and within 5 days, by the end of the week, by the time orientation was over, thanks to the goodness of people all around this young man here on campus in his hometown, he had everything he needed to start his college career, bedding and, ramen noodles, because you have to have ramen noodles when you go to college. And so, that's one story that still brings a tear to the eye every time I recall it. And this young man,
to him, Marci?
Oh wow, he graduated, met his wife here, and they have beautiful children, and is gainfully employed in helping people who come from a similar background in a professional way to overcome barriers. So,
two of the core values that Living Legacies wants to present, really on behalf of Branson, are hope and hospitality. And when I think of College of the Ozarks, and I think of the story about Joe and so many others, hope and hospitality are just exemplified all the time. Mm-hmm. So good.
Well, Joe seemed to not have hope. I didn't think he had hope. He may have had more hope than I realized. But, that's why I also shared about my own father, because he was from an incredibly hopeless situation, but his mom had hope, and she just knew. If she could get him down to that little school in Point Lookout, Missouri, that, things would be okay. And she was right. And God opened the doors for that, just like he opened the doors for Joe. And that's why hospitality is part of that. Hope is one thing, but unless we have hospitable people who are around to open the doors to hope, hope just might stand still.
That's right.
And so that's why I'm super grateful about growing up in the Ozarks and then getting to continue to share that kind of thing here at College of the Ozarks.
So good. Can you help our audience who may not be familiar with the college just about our mission and the need factor and kind of the reasons for need are varied? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When James Forsyth began this school 120 years ago almost, if not exactly, when he began this school, he came here as a Presbyterian missionary, but the first thing he learned right off the bat was, wow, these young men and women have nowhere to get education beyond what they can get at the free school, which was all that was available, the little one-room schoolhouses at that time. And, he just became passionate about helping students achieve education beyond what they could get. But it was very important to him because he also knew about the poverty in the area, that students, they couldn't go away and pay for that like maybe some of their counterparts could do in, let's say, in the nearest metropolitan area. So how could we make this happen? So he says, you know what, I want to start a school, and the students will pay for it by doing work in exchange for their educational expenses, and that work will keep the institution moving forward. And so it was built on this premise that people needed financial help. And that premise is still very strongly in practice at College of the Ozarks today. 90% of the students that we admit here must demonstrate financial need. And we assess that in a number of different ways: the financial aid form, a personal interview, other questions that we ask throughout the process. And we still have students, many, that come here and they work 2 40-hour work weeks. Plus, the main crux of it is 15 hours a week in exchange for a tuition scholarship, so that when they graduate, they don't owe any money for tuition. They graduate debt-free. And, that premise is still very, very important today. If you've priced higher education lately, especially at a private Christian school, you're looking upwards of $50,000, $60,000 a year. And most middle-class Americans can't afford that without going into debt.
So they work to offset that expense. How much of the expense does the work cover? Because I don't think it's all of it.
The work really only covers a little less, than maybe about a third. It might cover a third of the actual tuition cost in a year's time. So the remainder of that has to be made up by other things. So if students do show enough financial need to qualify for any federal or state grants, those grants will help along with their work. But even those two things together will not cover all of tuition. So the rest of that tuition is covered by the college with what we call a tuition assurance scholarship. Well, that scholarship is made possible by generous donors who, believe in what the college stands for its Christian mission, its focus on work, its focus on graduating debt-free, and, creating citizens or developing citizens of Christ-like character who are well-educated, hardworking, and patriotic. So, very strong still to this day as it started.
I failed to mention your title, which is new.
Right.
I'm going to let you say it.
Yeah, I acquired a new title, Vice President for Vocational Activities and Dean of Admissions, which the admissions role has been the lion's share of my career here. But I'm also fortunate to get to oversee financial aid, career development, and the Alumni Association. But the work, the vocational part, is a new role. So I get the opportunity to be responsible for the work program, and I have an outstanding dean of work that operates that program and vision sets for it for every single day. But it's really been an honor to come full circle, having been a graduate of this institution, graduating debt-free, experiencing what it had to offer, and now for several years actually being in a position to help students walk through the same door that I got to walk through, and that my dad got to walk through, and that Joe got to walk through. getting to help other students get to do the same. I mean, sometimes I find myself wrestling with, wow, was I very successful? I didn't get far away from home after I graduated. You're supposed to graduate and go to the big city and do great big things. And then I'm like, wow, how more successful can one be to have a job, a vocation, a calling like what I have, literally in the backyard of where I grew up. I mean, do you know how rare that is? Yeah. It's incredibly rare. And I recognize that, and I thank God for that.
You've helped thousands of students. We're grateful.
Well, just like I was helped, so.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. This has been great. I'd love to hear your stories about your own family and those kids. So thank you, Marci.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us at Living Legacies of the Ozarks. We hope you'll be back with us next time, and have a great day. Living Legacies of the Ozarks is brought to you by Ozark Mountain Legacy, College of the Ozarks, First Presbyterian Church of Branson, the Herschend Family Foundation, Meyer Hotels, and Sight and Sound Theaters.